All right, Western Civ. Here we go with our first lecture on ancient Rome and its beginnings. Oops. Ancient Rome is going to be it's going to be a really amazing empire. It's going to be one of the greatest empires in the history of the world. Okay, you can see how much territory they control. Almost all of Europe, Northern Africa, Turkey, parts of Asia Minor, and even modern day Great Britain. Okay, pretty crazy how much territory they control. And the big deal about the Roman Empire is not so much what they do, it's what they spawn. And what they spawn is one of the greatest, well, I shouldn't say the greatest, it's very influential religion. And that's Christianity. And Christianity is going to have a huge impact on world history, and we're going to see that throughout this class. So here we go. All right. Now, the origin of Rome, we could talk about the real story, and we're going to, but let me just give you a little mythology here, because the Romans are going to value a lot of crazy things, and what they value is violence. They value war. They value men being superior. Sorry, ladies. They value conquering new lands and just being superior to all the other civilizations. And nothing says that more than their origin stories. Every civilization, great civilization, has a story, a legend of how it was started. And Rome actually has two. They have Romulus and Remus, the two brothers, and we'll read that story in class. But they're raised by a she-wolf, which is why we're looking at this disturbing picture here. All right, they're raised by wolves, and their father is a god, and they are going to end up fighting over who is going to end up building and ruling a city. And in the course of that, Romulus kills his brother Remus and gets to name his new city after himself. That's one version of the origin of Rome. The other version is the Aeneid, and that's by Virgil. And he is going to tell the story of a sailor leaving the city of Troy after it's being conquered by the Greeks and founding a city on the Italian peninsula. And the reason why he finds a city where he finds it is because he's told by the god Jupiter, who was like the Zeus of the Romans, and he conquers this new territory. And there's more to the story, and we'll look at that a little bit too in class. But really interesting stories, and they're filled with drama. Okay. The first Romans, you got to understand that the real story, we're talking about the real story here. The real story is that Rome is found by three different groups. One is the Latins. And the Latins are not like the Latin when you're thinking of like South America, Central America, Latin ethnicity. The Latins are the ancestors of the Romans, and they're going to build the original settlement. They're just a group of tribes that are living in the area of the Italian peninsula. So they're considered to be the first Romans. They helped spread the languages, the Latin-derived languages, to the area, and Latin is going to be the official language of the Romans, and also the official language to this day of the Catholic Church. If anyone's ever went to a Catholic service, you'll notice that some of the service is in Latin. So, and that'll make sense later as we go through the course. We also have the Greeks who settled in the south. The biggest influence the Greeks have on the Romans is religion, is farming techniques. They're going to bring crops like olives and grapes to the Romans, which is going to be very important to them. But they settle in southern Italy and Sicily. They're also going to bring ideas of philosophy and democracy, which is a form of government that the Romans are going to use. They're going to have two different forms of democracy. The Greeks have a direct democracy, and the Romans have a representative democracy. And we'll talk about that in class also. All right. The Etruscans. Here we go. They probably have more influence on the Romans than anybody else. Sorry. They really influence the Romans. And one of the big ways that they influence the Romans is they share their lust for killing. The Etruscans are from the north. They actually conquer Rome, and they make Rome from a village of a few huts to a huge city, and they bring things like gladiator battles, gladiatorial games. They help create the first arch in history, the Roman arch. They build sewers underneath the city of Rome. They do all kinds of great stuff for the Romans. So the Etruscans are another big influencer on the Romans. We can say that the Romans copied a lot of other people's ideas, which helped make them great. So here we go. Here's what we're looking at with the Mediterranean. You got the Italian Peninsula. You got Sicily down here. This looks like it's connected, but it's not. Here, let me show you a better picture. All right. Here's the Etruscans up here. Here's Rome. All right. These are the Latin people. And you can see where the Greeks had settled. And the Carthaginians we're not talking about right now. Okay. The Alps are up here. So we'll talk about that. We talk about geography. All right. So we will discuss the different influences on Roman values in class. All right. Just quickly, the geography. Rome is located on the Italian peninsula. It looks like a boot. They call it the Italian boot. All right. The island of Sicily down here, the boot kicks Sicily. All right. The city of Rome is about midway up the Italian peninsula, and it's located on a bunch of hills, and it is located next to a river. Great civilizations start next to a river. And it's in the middle of the Mediterranean, like I said, and the climate is great for growing crops, even wheat. They grow a lot of wheat. We will not discuss this right now. We'll discuss it in class. All right. So the Romans have Etruscan kings controlling them because the Etruscans conquer Rome. They conquer Rome. So when the Etruscans take over the area of Rome, like I said before, they change everything. And they really make Rome what it is. The Forum is at the heart of ancient Rome. In fact, that's where all the government activities happen. That is where the Senate is. They do this to keep the Romans happy, the people known as the Romans, which are a mix of Latins and Latin-speaking people. But the Etruscans are not very nice to the Roman people, and they actually they really mistreat them. And in 509 BCE, the Romans have had enough. And they kick out the king, the Etruscan king of Rome. And they start a democracy, and they call this democracy a republic. And the idea of a republic is that people will elect representatives to serve their interests. So this is a true democracy, and it's something that our founding fathers really wanted to emulate. You have a king that is ruling over a group of people, and the group of people get upset, they get sick and tired of it, and they kick out the king. They have a revolution, and they kick out the king. And in place of this monarchy, in which one ruler is kind of in charge of everything, they put in place a republic, and that is what the Romans did. And if that story sounds familiar, it's what we here in the United States also did in our history. So, there you go. That's our first lecture.